Okay, so we're picking up where we left off yesterday, and we're gonna finish pretty soon, probably. So I tried to prepare some other related adventures since I don't want to start Ava Hashem Yiras Hashem this week. I'd prefer to save that for next week. So the last thing we did was the placement of the Nair. Let me just make this a little bit bigger here. Okay, so yeah, okay, so I think we're on test now. Okay, Ner Chanukah. Shehidliko cherish shotev katan o goy. So a Ner Chanukah that was kindled by a deaf person, a shota, however you want to translate that, and a katan and a minor, or a goy or a non-Jew, lo asoklum. It didn't do anything. Ad shiadliko mishu chayv bahadlaka, until you until someone who's chayiv in hadlaka kindles it. Side note here, I think this is obvious, but in case it's not obvious, I just wanted to read this footnote here about cheresh, about a deaf person. So misha eno shamev eno medaber. That's referring to someone who can't hear and cannot speak. Shebiglal hiskashrus halakuya beno levein habrios. That due to the what would that be? Compromised relationship? Lakuya. I assume lakuya is like compromised or stricken. Let me just see if that's some sort of modern word though that I don't know.
Like loca, maybe?
What was that?
Like loca?
Yeah, like loca, yeah. But I don't know if it's referring to, let's see, lakuya, defective, yeah. So faulty is what they said. So due to the faulty, I guess, relationship or ability to relate beno lebena brios between him and others, haya nechshav b'derech klal chaser das. Then he is in general considered to be lacking in knowledge or lacking in mental capacities. Aval misha medaber ve'eno shomea, but someone who can. This is now from a quote from Hilchos 2:26. Someone who speaks but can't hear, or he hears but doesn't speak, who kachol adam, then he's like anyone else. So first of all, I don't know exactly what they mean that because of his being compromised in his relationship with people. I don't know if that's just like an indirect way of saying that like he can't communicate, but it's not really the lack of communication. It's, I mean, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, my understanding is basically before, if a person was born deaf, then before sign language was invented, they just had no way of developing das because they had no way to acquire language, So they were not b'nai das. They didn't have any das, just like, in a normal sense. Like obviously you have like very, rare cases like Helen Keller, who was able to, I guess retain enough language capacity to learn language later on, despite being blind and deaf. But, for the most part, I assumed it was because there is no das, but I just want to make that clear and just point out that there is a Rambam that says there's not the deafness, it's the lack of both of them. But if you just can't hear, that's not a problem in terms of das. So just wanted to read that for the sake of thoroughness, because this is the first time we've encountered that.
I think people still are able to think, even and have das. They just like I think it's specifically the lack of communication.
I don't think so. I don't think historically that's true. I think that if you didn't have, at least, I mean, I haven't done a study on this, but like in places where deaf people could not acquire language and there was no sign language, there's no braille, they just didn't develop in their das. Very, very recently, in human history, did they invent ways to communicate,
What do you mean that they didn't develop in their das? Like what in particular?
You mean that they had there's no way for them to have no knowledge, they have no communication skills.
Yeah, right. Meaning, but I'm saying that it actually affects their linguistic ability, right? Like to choose a wild example. I mean, I guess I use the term, but like you've heard of like feral children, right? Like who were like raised, in the forest, and like there aren't that many examples of this, but like at a certain point they lose the capacity to attain to acquire knowledge, and I've got to assume, again, I haven't done a study on this, but I like that's where the word dumb comes from, right? The word dumb in English means that you can't speak, because people without the ability to speak or who didn't have access to language just didn't develop in their in their thoughts, in their ability to think. So that's what my assumption has always been for cheresh, why they're lav b'nei das, and it's just we don't think of a person who's a cheresh that way because to us, the only chereshim that we encounter do have language because we have ways to like communicate with them now, so they're raised normally. So you can verify, you can fact check me if you want. I said I haven't researched this, but that's my assumption. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So, hidliko mibifnim, if a person lit the ner inside, meaning he did the act of lighting while it was inside, votzio dalok, and he brought it outside while it was lit, vihinicho al pesach beso, and he placed it at the entrance of his house, lo asa klum, then he hasn't done anything, ad shiad likenu b'makomo, until he lights it in its place.
Question?
Yeah.
Didn't you just say, though, that you are yotze b'shas sakana if it's on your shulchan?
Right. So I think that is because b'shas sakana, that is its place.
So if it's not shas sakana, then you wouldn't even be yotze b'diavad.
Right. Right. That's a good question, but I think that's my understanding of b'makomo, meaning in its halakhically appropriate place. Interesting thing though is, well, okay, I'm going to hold off on this question until we get to the end of the next halacha. I guess we'll see. Hold on. Let's finish this halacha first. Achaz haner biado v'amad. So if a guy held the candle in his hand and stood, I guess outside of his house, lo asaklum, he hasn't done anything. Sheharoa omer letzarko hu omed, because the onlooker will say that it was for his own needs that he's standing. So what's interesting about that is it's not a lack of like being bimakomo or like a lack of it being munach, it's a separate issue of I guess its ability to serve its function as a ner for pirsum is compromised because a person can mistake it for it being a personal ner, so I thought that was interesting. Ashashis. Okay, now I always forget what an ashashis is. Is that like a chandelier? I mean, I know the footnote on the side explains what it is. But what's the literal translation? Ashashis is a lamp or an oil. Okay, a lantern is what it is. So the footnote on the side defines ashashis as ner lamaor hadolik zman rav. So a long-lasting ner. So a lantern. So wait, I just lost my place here. Ashashis shaisa dolekas kol hayom kulo. An ashashis that was kindled all day long. Lemotze Shabbos, mechaba umavarech umadlika. So on Motzei Shabbos, you can extinguish it and then make a bracha and light it. Shahahadlaka hi hamitzvah lo hahanacha, because the lighting is a mitzvah, not the hanacha. Umutar lahalik ner Chanukah miner Chanukah acher, and it is permissible to light from one ner Chanukah to another. So first of all, why does he have to specify the Motzei Shabbos? Am I missing something here? Like, why is this not a halakha on every day?
I think in like the normal example of when that would happen.
Could be. Right, I guess because when else are you going to like have a candle lit for the entire day, right? You're not going to have a candle lit.
Right, otherwise you're going to just blow it out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. All right, that makes sense.
You don't need it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now going back to the question here, when he says that shehahadlaka hi mitzvah lo hahanacha. So going back to this case of hidliku mibifnim v'hotio daluk v'hiniku al pesach beisel lo asa klum. So if you were outside and you lit it and then you put it down, it's mashma that's fine, right? Because he says hidliku mibifnim v'hotio daluk v'hiniku al pesach. Meaning the problem in that case is not the lack of hanacha or the fact that like you did the hanacha afterwards. It's the fact that you weren't modeling it in its makom. Is that a fair inference?
Oh, so you could light it in your hand and then put it down?
Sounds like it, right? And same thing with the it sounds like even the I don't know if this is going by like Hilchos Shabbos, definitions of hanacha, where like standing still is considered hanacha, but like when he says but the case where the guy's holding the candle, that lo asa klum shel ro'eh omer l'tzarchu omid. Also, that does not sound like a lack of hanacha. It just sounds like you're going to mistake the candle for something else. Yeah. So the question here, I guess, is what's the unifying identity of this halacha, right? Because it's definitely like, I mean, is this about like how do you define this halacha? All the cases in this halacha, because they sound very miscellaneous, you know. Yeah, that's what I would think also, right? Does that fit all of them though? It doesn't quite fit the case of the holding in your hand. It sort of does, but it doesn't fit smoothly, you know. I'm with you right now. That seems to be the most likely thing. Yeah, I mean, maybe, is it just the Maaseh HaMitzvah? It is, but like I don't think we've seen anything that would fit in, because we had like this man, and we've had the material, and we've had the makom, and then now this is the Maaseh HaMitzvah.
Yeah, I think I was actually going to say something along those lines, because
yeah,
if you look at the next one, it's like doing multiple events of halakha, like multiple actions of halakha. I think this is like how you actually do it properly.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, because he keeps saying lo asa klum.
Yeah,
so he's talking about like psulim in the Maaseh.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, good. Yud chatzar sheish la shnei psachim b'shtei ruchos tzricha shnei neros shlo yomru ha'ovrim beruach zo lo hinichu ner Chanukah. Hinichu ner Chanukah. That's why he uses the lashon hanacha. You know, not lo hidliku ner Chanukah. So if you have a courtyard with two entrances in two different directions, then it is necessary to have two neros, so that the passers-by, the people who pass by in one direction, will not say he didn't set out a ner Chanukah. But if he had it two openings in one direction, then he can light in one of them and not do the other one. Yeah,
that's really weird. Like, is it like chashad or whatever?
Yes, I mean that's my that's the word that comes to my mind here, probably because the Gemara uses that, I think, chashad. But yeah, it is strange. I mean, so you can understand in the previous halacha with the roeh thinking that this is l'tzorcho hu omed, that is like a category of ner Chanukah, that like it has to be a ner for pirsum, and you can't think that it's something else. Like we saw that also with the person who has a we saw that for the timing, you know, that you can't think that you're lighting for light, you know. But chashad is like a weird category that I feel like doesn't show up a whole ton of areas in halacha, you know. Like you got chashad in some areas in arayos, you know, but like it's not like I don't know,
Avodah comes up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, that's true also, right? But it's not like with mitzvos like this. I'm just trying to think of other mitzvos that have a similar like ongoing nature to it, that a person can like go in the situation where does it use the term chashad by going to minyan, right? Like if you pass by a shul when they're davening, or is that a different term? Yeah, I feel like that would be the category. Yeah, it is odd though. Okay.
I'm just like spitballing for like an area of my
Sure.
Making the fact that there is some facade like ruins your means and then you're like in the middle. It's like a normal hidden facade.
I mean, it'd be interesting then, because maybe it would. Or I'm gonna also speculate here, but like if the candle looks like something else, then that's a lack in the actual candle itself, you know. But if it looks like you aren't a person who's lighting a candle, that would be a lack of pirsum in a different way, you know. The fact that like this guy didn't light a ner.
The light in the eyes.
Okay, that's
Right.
also right. Yeah, the bias is not qualified by nair. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's reasonable. Okay, Yod Aleph. Oreach shemadlikin alav b'soch beso. So if you're a guest and they're lighting for you at home, meaning you're a guest somewhere else, but at your home they're lighting for you. So then you don't need to light in the place where you are a guest at. But if you don't have a house that they're lighting for you in, so then you do need to light in a place that you are guesting in. And you join in with them with the shemen, meaning you pay for part of the cost of the shemen, and then that counts for you. And if he had a house to himself, over him. Okay, that's another bias issue, right? So if you're in someone else's house and they're lighting for you at home, then you don't need to do anything. And it's interesting there because then each house has someone lighting. But if you are in a house that's lighting, but you don't have someone lighting for you, then you do need to light. Or if you have a house by yourself, then even though they're lighting for you, then you still need to light it because of the passersby. Then a chashad becomes an issue also. So that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, if we care about like the passing by one direction, certainly if you pass by an entire house that doesn't have anyone lighting in it, then that's a greater case. Okay, next mitzvahs. Okay, now he gets. I never quite understood like what this is doing here. Mitzvahs ner Chanukah, mitzvah chaviva hi ad ma'od. So the mitzvah of ner Chanukah is a very dear mitzvah, beloved mitzvah, exceedingly. But tzarech adam lihizaher ba. A person needs to be careful with it. Kidei lahodia hanes ulahosif b'shava chakel v'hodaya lo ahanisim she'asa. In order to make known the miracle, and to add to the praise of God and thanks for the miracles that He did. Afilu ein lo ma yochal ela min hatstaka shoel. Even if a person doesn't have anything to eat except for from tzedakah, he must borrow. O mocher ksuso, or sell his garment, v'lokeach shemen v'neros umadlik, and purchase oil and candles to light.
This really feels like it belongs at the beginning of Parak Gimel.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I mean, it is an introduction to the mitzvah, but it also, like, he does do this a lot, where, like, at the very end of the section, he'll talk about the way that we're supposed to relate to the mitzvah. So I think that's like a common pattern in the Mishneh Torah here. Do you associate to any other mitzvah from this halacha here?
Megilah.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Because Chaviv.
Oh, he calls Megilah Chaviv also?
Yeah, I don't know if the Rambam calls it that.
I don't think the Rambam does. The Gemara does, right? For the Trei Kali?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh, dear.
What about the second half of the halacha, though? Afilu ein lo ma yochal ela min hatstaka.
Arbacosis.
Yeah, arbacosos, right? So just for kicks, I decided to look at the lashon that the Rambam uses by arbacosos. Let me show you. Actually, I'm just going to share the whole screen now. So arbacosos, and it's interesting because it's slightly different. Oops, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one because I couldn't see. Where are we? Chametz matzah. Zion. Let's move this here. Move this so I can see. Okay, so by arbacosos, he says. So b'chol dor v'dor, I'm backing up one because I think it's important. B'chol dor v'dor chayv adam liros says, okay, lahara says atmo kilahu ba'atmo yata atam yishubun mitzrayim. So in each and every generation, a person is obligated to demonstrate about himself that it's as though he left Mitzrayim now. Left now from the subjugation of Mitzrayim. It says he took us out from there. Regarding this matter, the Torah commanded and said, remember that you were a slave. As if you yourself were a slave, and you went out to freedom and were redeemed. Therefore, when a person eats his meal on that night, he needs to eat and drink while reclining in the manner of a free person. V'chol echad v'echad bein anashim bein nashim chayv lishos b'layla hazeh arba'a kosos shel yain. And each and every person, men and women, is obligated to drink on that night 4 cups of wine. Ein pachas mehan, no less. Va'afil ani hamisparnes min hatzedakah. Even a poor person who is supported from charity, from tzedakah, lo yivchasu lo me'arba kosos, cannot have less than 4 kosos. Shir kol kos mehen revis, and the amount for each kos is a revis. So interesting here, right? So this is afilo ani hamisparnes min hatzedakah, lo yivchasu lo me'arba kosos. But by Hanukkah, he says he doesn't call him an ani. Afilo ein lo ma yocha ala min hatzedakah. So you could say that that's the same, but then he says shoel o mocher ksuso v'lokeach shemen v'neros umadlik. He has to borrow or sell his clothing and buy candles and oil to light. I mean, is that an afkamina? Is it that for dalkos you don't have to sell your clothing or borrow? I don't know. Not sure.
Also, I mean, why these specific 2 mitzvahs? Like they seem like they're both like darbanans and like
right. So
really,
so the arba kosos I can understand just from the way that the Rambam presents it, which is that there is a chiyuv of liros esatmo kiluhu yatzim mitzrayim or laharos esatmo, and that's why he says he segues into lefikach, and it would be a fundamental lack in Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim if you didn't demonstrate cherus, you know. So like that I can understand. But Ner Chanukah sounds like it's just stemming from the fact that it's important, you know, like, or chaviv, you know, it doesn't sound like it's stemming from any like intrinsic quality in the mitzvah, you know. Unless you're going to say something like the fact that that God saved us means that we need to publicize it, and there would somehow be like a lack in the hodah and shevach, like if you didn't do this. I mean, but is it, you know, all these things are very speculative. Like it is weird that it's these 2, you know. I
mean, yeah. Do we say this about like matanos avionim or like things like that?
Right. I mean, I don't. These are the only 2 cases I know of. I haven't done an exhaustive search, but like, you know, in general, like you would think that there is a like an honest rachman patre, right? I mean, that's the general, you know, the general thing. Like if you literally don't have anything except, you know, if you don't have any money to buy any food and you're dependent on tzedakah, I don't know. I wish I could remember. I should have looked it up ahead of time where the Rambam says how much you're obligated to spend on mitzvos in general. Anyone know where that is? Yeah. And then the other question I have here is mitzvah chavivihi ad ma'od, but tzarich adam lehizaher ba. So that reminds me of the only other place I know where he says that is mezuzah. Again, I haven't done a search here, but let's look at mezuzah really quickly. I think he says mezuzah. Ahava, chapter 6, I think. No. Oh yeah, lihizahir. Yeah, chayv adam lihizahir b'mezuzah mipnei she'ichovas hakol tamid. Yeah, so not chaviva, but chayv lihizahir. Yeah. I also like don't know. I mean, I don't think this is actually like. I don't think this has any specific technical halakhic nafkaminas, right? I mean, this is just saying like there's a lot of details in Ner Hanukkah, and you have to like make extra careful to do it, you know. I'm not sure. Okay, so then we get to the final famous series of halachas at the end. Harish ein lo ala pruta achas. If you only had one pruta, one whatever penny, coin, nickel, ulfanav kiddush hayom v'hadlakas ner Chanukah, and before him were kiddush hayom, which it's going to be clear from the halacha he means wine for kiddush. So either you could pay for your wine for kiddush or hadlakas ner Chanukah. Makdim shemin lahadlik ner Chanukah. So then you have to take precedence. You have to give priority to oil for ner Chanukah. Al hayan l'kiddushiam, over the wine for kiddush. Hoyel ushneim b'divrei sofrim, since both of them are midirabanan. Mutav lahaktim ner Chanukah shishba zichron hanes. It's better to give priority to ner Chanukah because it has zichron hanes. which is interesting because I guess, I mean, it is interesting because what role, like what's the kiyum of Kiddush Hayom then? That's like competing with Zichron Hanes. What do you say? Right. So it's part of Zechoras Yom HaShabbos. So you would think on the surface that like, Shabbos has two kiyumim, is Zecher L'Maaseh Bereishis and Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, right? So like that would outweigh, Zichron Hanes. So either you're going to say, yeah?
One point to mention is that the yayin itself is only Megilah, so in terms of Kiddush Hayom, you're not just without the yayin.
Right. Okay, good. So I was going to say there are two ways to take this. One is to either say that Zichron Hanes is somehow more significant than Zecher L'Maaseh Bereishis of Kiddush or Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim of Kiddush, or the other one is to say that the kiyum of Kiddush is Zecher L'Maaseh Bereishis and Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, but the yain is just kiyum of kavod, of like koshel bracha, and like you're not lacking in your Kiddush, and therefore it's having just a koshel bracha, whatever you say that kiyum is of kavod habracha or whatever. I don't know what the halacha kiyum is versus Zichron Hanes. Then Zichron Hanes wins hands down.
It would seem the Rambam, in the second way, he mentioned that both of them are Megilah Sofrim, and Kiddush isn't Megilah Sofrim if you're talking about Kiddush itself.
Right. No. So that I know, but what I was saying is that like is saying Kiddush over Yain a kiyum in Kiddush, or like in other words, does it? I mean, obviously it's a kiyum in Kiddush, but is it? Do we regard it as like amplifying the themes of Kiddush, or do we just regard it as like an enhancement of Shevach? And the Shevach you happen to be giving is like Ma'aseh Bereishis, and you keep trying, but so let's say like, for example, like doing Kiddush through bracha is definitely an enhancement, because that's also Mitzvah very Sofrim, but that's clearly an enhancement of Kiddush, but doing it al kos, not sure, yeah. Okay, then the final famous one, Hayal Lefanav ner Besov ner Chanukah o ner Besov Kiddush Hayom. So if there was before him ner Beso. Now, my understanding of ner Beso, and maybe this is just because I learned this in the Gemara, is that it's ner Shabbos. But ner Beso, like the footnote guy here says, ner Beso ner Lama or Bebeso, and I guess that's based on the Ritva's understanding of the Sugya and Shabbos, meaning just your household lights, which is not even a mitzvah. Shiyu b'nei beso b'shalom v'lo yitzta'aru b'choshech. And he says, ach l'das rabim, but according to many, hakavana hi davka l'ner Shabbos. So that first opinion is much harder to understand because, there's no mitzvah to have like lights in your house, like just on a regular day. So you would think it's like ner Shabbos, okay? But he does call it ner beso, and the Rambam knows the term ner Shabbos. He could have easily said ner Shabbos. So I'm not sure what to make of it, and especially based on the reasoning he gives. Then it could be then the footnote could be on target.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that Mishum Shalom bias really makes it seem like it's near Bezos.
Yeah, right. I hear that. Yeah. And so he said,
I think. Yeah.
Well, let's read the halacha first. Okay. I know we've all read the halacha before, but so o ner beso of Kiddush Hayom. So, or if it's a competition between ner beso and Kiddush Hayom, wine for Kiddush Hayom, ner beso kodem. So then your house candle comes first. Mishum shalom beso, because of shalom bias. Shari Hashem nimchak lasos shalom ben ish leisha, because the name of Hashem is erased in order to make peace between a man and his wife. Gadol hashalom, shalom is great. Shekol haTorah nitna lasos shalom ba'olam, because the entire Torah was given to make peace in the world. Shenemar, as it is stated, darchei noam v'chol nasiv hashalom. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its ways are peace. Which, by the way, if you look up that pasuk in Mishlei, hold on, let me just go to the pasuk in Mishlei. Actually, no, let's focus on this first, then, because we're going to go a bunch of other places after this. Yeah. So, what were you going to say, Zev?
Well, I was going to say that I think the Tom for ner Shabbos, I'm pretty sure has to do with that, like shalom bias.
Right.
Maybe.
That's what Rashi says.
So,
but still, is a tremendous nafkamina in the footnote, though, about if you're right. If you're talking about like,
no, I'm just saying it would fit with the Rambam's, like the rest of the halacha, even if you said ner Shabbos.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, either way it would fit with the halacha. It's just a question of how big the halacha chiddush is, you know. And the funny thing, so what I was gonna say before is like you know, here I am saying, well, you know, like, are you really gonna say that shalom, like normal shalom bias, is that important that it overrides Ner Hanukkah? Well, the Rambam is saying that God's name is erased, you know, to make shalom between a man and his wife, and like, yeah, that's sanctioned by the Torah itself. That's part of the procedure, but like, I don't know, like it's you know, I could see it going that way. Yeah. So the question is, I guess, we could work on this idea, okay? But because this is a Rambam Bekius here, I wanted to do a bunch of Bekius stuff first on this. So one thing is, this is the first time we've done the end of a sefer in Rambam Bekius. Now, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't think we're going to finish Sefer Hamada by the end of this yeshiva academic year. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about like the ends of the Sfarim of the Rambam. So what have you heard about the ends of the Sefer of the Rambam? And I'm asking this because I've heard two things. Like, what does the Rambam do at the end of the Sefer? Besides like recounting all of the halacha sections again and saying Barich Rahman Zayan, blessed be the God who helped us.
He talks about some more general things.
Yes. Okay, good. What kinds of talking about general things?
I'm guessing maybe the philosophy of the, like more like, not philosophy, like a more philosophical perspective on the topic of the Sefer.
Okay, so one thing that seems clear is that the Rambam does often talk about philosophy at the end of the Sefer, right? Now, that's not unique to the end of the Sefer. He also does this at the end of certain sections of halachos, right? So the question, so that's like, again, that's like that's Rambam Bekius 101, that if you want at some point, everyone should do this, is read through the end of every section in the Mishneh Torah. And not all of them have philosophy, but it's a good way to find a lot of the philosophy of the Rambam. Okay, so that's one.
How are we defining end? Like how many, like the last parak, the last?
The last couple halachos of each Hilchos section.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's one thing to do. Okay,
you'll know when you see it.
Yeah, you'll know when you see it, exactly, right? So, but then the question is again about what about the end of the Sefer, you know? So like Isaac's saying, it's about the Sefer as a whole. Okay, so here's what I've heard, all right? I've heard people say that it is sort of a summation of the Sefer as a whole, but I've also heard people say that it is a segue into the next Sefer. It's showing the bridge between the two Sfarim, okay? So just as examples of this, so this is focusing on Shalom, and specifically the one example of Shalom he gives is being Ish Ishto. And what is the next Sefer in the Mishneh Torah after Sefer Zmanim?
Nashim.
Nashim, exactly, right? And specifically Hilchos Ishus, right? So like it would be appropriate that he's talking about Shalom, you know, being Adam Leishto when it's talking about Sefer Nashim, right? Here's another example, is at the end of Sefer Hamada. What does he talk about in Hilchos Tשובה? So last halacha is So he's talking about Ovid me Ahava, and then he says Davar Bar Davar Yidu Bar Shein Avas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Niksheres B'Libo Shel Adam Ad Sheyishke Ba Tamid. It is a known and clear thing that the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not bound up in a person's heart until he immerses himself in it constantly. Karoi properly, v'yazov kol sheba'olam chutz mimena, and abandons everything in the world except for it. Kamosha tzivav, as it is commanded, as he commanded and said, b'chol levav v'chol nafshaka, you have to do it with all your heart and all your soul. Ella b'dea sheyidaehu, only with the knowledge with which you know him. V'al pi hadea, al pi ha'ava, and the love is in proportion to the knowledge. Ima ad ma'at, v'im harbe harbe, if a little, if a lot. Lefikach tzarich adam liyached atmo lahavin ulhaskil b'chachmos utevunos hamodin lo eskono kvi kol sheyesh ba'adam lahavin ulhasik. Therefore, a person needs to seclude himself, to specialize, whatever you want to say it, devote himself to understand and to comprehend sciences and branches of understanding that make known to him his creator, according to the capacity of man to understand and to know. As we explained in Hilchos Yesodei Torah. So here, what is he doing? Is he's tying it back to the entire Sefer Hamada, even back to Yesodei Torah, and he's connecting it to the next book after Sefer Hamada, which is Sefer Ahava, right? So the theory holds up well here, okay? But then you got other exceptions. So for example, if you go to Sefer Ahava, the last section is Hilchos Mila, because the Siddur HaTefillah is not part of Sefer Ahava. And at the end of Hilchos Mila, he just has a thing about Bris Mila. Bo'ur ekama chamura Mila, shalom nitla l'Moshe Rabbeinu aleha afilu sha'a achas. See how stringent Mila is, that Moshe Rabbeinu was lo nitle afilu sha'a achas. Afa pi shehaya b'derech. I mean, I don't know what he means by nitla. I get the sense it means like he wasn't, exempted from it or whatever, even when he was on the path, on the derech. V'chol mitzvos Torah nichrasu alein shalosh brisos bilvad. All the other mitzvos of the Torah, God made 3 covenants for. I'm not going to read through all the psukim here, so he quotes the 3 psukim. But then he says, Hari shalosh brisos, that's 3. Val hamila nichrasu shalosh esrei brisos im Avraham avinu. And he quotes the brisos with Avraham. Now, unless you're very, very creative, so, okay, fine. The bris with Avraham, you could say, or the bris with the Torah, you could maybe weave that into the rest of Sefer Ava. I don't know. It's a stretch to weave that into Sefer Zmanim. Because Zmanim is not about...
I don't know. I mean, Shabbos is a bris.
Ooh! That's true. It's true. Okay, fine. So there's room to say that. So I guess the question is, we're not going to do this now, but I just wanted to call your attention to this, that if you wanted to be thorough, you would go through all of the Sfarim and see if the theory holds up, like to see if the theory holds up that the last halacha or halachos in the Sefer reflects on the previous Sefer, and then see whether it connects to the next Sefer, And I'm not going to spoil it for you. You can do that on your own. But I think there are ones that you can't do this with, right? I think, actually, wait a minute, maybe Eved, Avadim, hold on. No. Okay, fine. All right, so I won't go through it. I'll let you do that on your own as a fun adventure. Yeah, okay, so that's just one thing I wanted to call your attention to. And so this one I think does fit. Okay, so any questions on that before we go on our next little Rambam Bekius adventure? Okay, and in terms of why, I mean, why does he do this? The Rambam did say that he wanted to, we've seen this throughout the entire thing, is he's not just telling you halachos, he wants to give you a way to conceptualize taryag through categories and through the tamei mitzvos and the Yesodei Torah, and ending off the entire thematic book and thematic section by calling attention to the major themes serves that purpose, So I think that works out well. Okay, next thing I wanted to go through is I was looking for other Rambams that dealt with Shalom, okay? And I had forgotten about this halacha. One of my Facebook friends, Rabbi Micha Berger, pointed this out to me. There's this category of things that we say mipnei darchei shalom, right? Like you're allowed to do, like it's usher, but you're allowed to do mipnei darchei shalom, right? So what's your understanding of mipnei darchei shalom? Like if you had to explain that in English terms, what would it be that we do certain things or we make certain allowances mipnei darchei shalom?
Like I guess like just sort of like common decency is to do this and like to keep peace, I guess.
With
to,
who?
like keep I think it's with non-Jews.
Right. So it definitely has to do with our relationships with non-Jews, right? And it's to like common decency. Anyone else have any other like associations to mipnei darchei shalom? Like what would be the alternative? Why don't we want to do the alternative? I mean, do we need examples of mipnei darchei shalom? Maybe that would help. Let's do some searches here. Mipnei. Actually, when you look up darchei shalom in the Rambam, you know what? Oh, what happened there? Why is it not giving me? Oh, because I still have it set on Tanakh. So we don't want everything. We want this on Rambam. Why is it not? I thought he uses the phrase darchei shalom. Wait, why is it? It's only giving me Tanakh. Something's busted. Hold on, let me go incognito and see if it's the cookies that are causing trouble. Oh, by the way, consider contributing to All Torah. I definitely contributed because I know I've used it a lot this year. Okay, darchei Shalom. Let's see if the results are different here. Rambam. It's annoying me that it's giving me English. Okay, let's see here. Darchei Shalom. Okay, so here's one. Oh, 10.5. Here's one example. Okay, yeah. Mefarnesin ani goyim im ani Yisrael mipnei darchei shalom. Okay, so we support through tzedakah poor non-Jews along with poor Jews mipnei darchei shalom because of the ways of peace. We don't rebuke the non-Jews who take leket peh and shechacha because of darchei shalom. V'sholim b'shlomam. We greet them afilu yom b'yom edam, even on their holidays. And if you know anything about the Rambam's view of the holidays of non-Jews, he's very machmir. Okay, like in general, like there's a lot of stuff that you don't do on. I mean, it's not just the Rambam, but like if you've read through the Rambam, you'll see how machmir we are on this. But we don't double shalom back to them. I forgot what that means. We don't enter into a non-Jew's place, into his house to give him shalom on the day of his holiday. And if we encounter him in the market on the day of his holiday, we greet him with a soft lip and a heavy head. Okay, so that's one example. Let me just see some other good examples here. Okay, so he also mentions the matnos aniyim, Shlomo. Oh, Gzela Vaveda. Huh. Hold on. Okay, fine. I guess I'm not finding a lot of examples that illustrate the point I'm making. So. Maybe you don't think of it like this, but I think if you ask a lot of Jews, they'll be under the impression that darchei shalom is like to not cause trouble with the non-Jews. You know, like we don't want to upset the non-Jews, and therefore we do things to keep the peace. Okay, have you heard that before? I mean, is that common notion? I think it's just like the way people take it. So what I want to show you is in Hilchos Malachim Umilchamos. Where he says a fuller explanation of darchei shalom here. Okay, so check this out. Okay, so this is talking about our relationships with non-Jews. This is in the context of ger toshav and ger tzedek and Eretz Yisrael. It seems to me that we conduct ourselves with ger toshav, with bnei Noach who convert, but derech eretz ugimlus chasadim ki Yisrael. We treat them with the same derech eretz and kindness as Jews. Shahari anu mitzuvim lahachiosa. We are obligated to sustain a ger toshav. Shneimar, as it says, l'ger asher bisharecha titnena v'achala. We should give to the ger who's in our gates that he should eat, and that's clearly talking about a ger toshav, not a ger tzedek, because it's talking about Megilah. V'zesh amru chachamim, and when the chachamim said in koflin lahem shalom, you shouldn't double shalom to them. Begoyim lo ger toshav. That's for the goyim, not for the ger toshav. Okay. Afilu hagoyim though, but even the non-Jews, tzivu chachamim levaker choleihem levalikpor mesehem im mesei Yisrael. The chachamim commanded us, because remember the Rambam holds that this is d'Rabbanan, to do bikur cholim with them, velikpor mesehem im mesei Yisrael, and to bury their dead along with the dead of Israel, of Jews, ulefarnes aniyehem bichlal goy aniyei Yisrael, and to sustain their poor along with the poor of Israel, mipnei darchei shalom, because of darchei shalom. Now, if you stop there, which is what the Rambam said in Hilchos Avodah, you would think, okay, fine, so we're just doing it to make peace. But then check this out: Hari nemar tov Hashem lakol v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. God, Hashem is good to all, and His mercies are upon all of His creations. V'ne'amar darachaha darchei noam v'chol nasifoseha shalom. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its ways are peace. So does that change your view of what we mean by darchei shalom?
Yeah, it sounds like there's like some positive idea of doing it.
It's the fact that he quotes the fact that this is a derech Hashem, and it's part of the halachta bidrachav, and expresses itself in so many positive ways. Like it is an ideal. It's not just we have to play politics, and I think that that's puts a different spin on darchei shalom that I'd like to think about some more, but it is a different idea of shalom than we normally associate to, I think, one more example. Hold on. There was another example I was thinking of here. Where is it? Oh man, I just said there was another reference I was going to look up. Where was it? Oh, give me 1 second. I asked people on Facebook if they had references, and I just forgot where they referred me to. Hold on just 1 second. Sorry. Can't find it. Okay, one more place to do here, just to complete our statements of the Rambam that have to do with shalom. So I mentioned that we might do this today, which is the Rambam and the more Nevuchim about the nature of the shalom that will happen at the time of Yemos Mashiach. So we read this in the Mishneh Torah. What context were we doing it in of Yemos Mashiach? Oh, we were doing it in Amram ben Rambam in Chumash methodology. We weren't doing it in this year. Okay, fine. So this is in the More Nevuchim Gimel Yod Aleph, very short parak, as you can see here. So this is right after he does his chapter on Ra, on the types of Ra'os. And he says that all Ra'os stem from privations, that Ra is not a positive thing, it's a lack of something. So then he says here, and I've quoted this on the Stoic Jew podcast many times, but he says, but I want to see it inside. Haraos hagadolos halalu hanasos bein ishe bnei adam mizelazeh. The great evils that are done between people, the interpersonal evils that are done, kafi hamataros v'hatayvos v'hashkafos v'hadeos, that are due to various objectives or desires or beliefs or opinions. I don't know if deos here is opinions or character traits. Kulam gamhim nispachim lahedar. They are also related to non-existence, okay, to privation. Lefi shekulam michiyuve hasichlus, because all of them emerge of necessity out of ignorance. Klomar mehedar chachma, which is lack of wisdom or lack of knowledge. Okay, so in other words, Rambam holds that all interpersonal harm that we cause each other stems from ignorance. Okay. And then he gives a great mashal. Kishem shasuma machmas hedar harus lo yechtal milahikashel ulihichabel. Just like a blind person, due to his lack of sight, will not cease stumbling and injuring himself. Velachable gam b'zulaso, and also injuring other people. Machmas she'en lo ma she'yanachehu baderach. Because he doesn't have anything to guide him on the path. Kach kitos b'nei adam, so too the classes, the groups of people. Ko echad kfi erach sichluso, each one according to the degree of his ignorance. Poel ba'atmo uvizulaso ra'os gedolos biyachas li'ishe hamin. He will also cause himself and other people great harms in relation to the human species. Okay, so if you're ignorant, you're going to harm yourself and you're going to harm other people. Okay, so it's due to ignorance, and it's a good analogy of blindness because obviously ignorance means that you can't see the truth. V'ilu haisa sham chachma asher yachas aletzura ha'enushis ki yachas hakoach haroeh etel ha'ayin. If there were chachma, which in relation to the human form is like the sense of sight in relation to the eye, ki az hayu nimnaim kol nizakav me'atma umizulaso. That would prevent all harm that you would do to yourself and to others. Ki b'yedias ha'emes mistalekas ha'eva v'hasina. with knowledge of truth comes the removal of enmity and hatred. V'batlu nizke b'nei adam zelzeh, and it causes all harms between people to cease. It was already promised in the statement, V'gar zev im keves v'namer im gedi yerbats, that the wolf will lie down with the sheep, with lamb, and the leopard with the goat, or the sheep will crouch, whatever. V'gomer upara v'dov tarena, and the cow and the bear will graze. V'gomer v'shiashia yonek v'gomer, and the baby will play by the mouth of the snake. V'achar kach nasan sibalkach v'amar, and afterwards it gives the reason for this. Kisibas siluk ela hasinos v'hiskot tuyos. Oh, and by the way, the Rambam holds that that's all a mashal for Israel getting along with its enemies and with the wicked. So he says the cause for the removal of these hatreds of his kotutuyos and these quarrels, histaltuyos, and these, I don't even know what that means, histaltuyos, these strivings for dominion, like Sholate, I guess. Dias b'nei adam azamitas haloka, is mankind having knowledge of God. V'amar, as it says, lo yiru v'lo yashchisu b'chol har kodshi, that they will no longer cause harm and no longer destroy on my holy mountain. Ki malah ha'artz dea esad Hashem kamayim li'am machasim. For the entire earth will be filled with knowledge of Hashem, like the waters that cover the seabed. Daze, you should know this. So that's the Rambam Shita on Shalom, that Shalom, all conflict and interpersonal harm and self-harm come from lack of knowledge, and all peace, therefore, comes through knowledge. And that pasuk, which the Rambam quotes many times in the Mishneh Torah, of the entire earth will be filled with knowledge of God, that is the pasuk that the Rambam ends the Mishneh Torah with, famously, right? That osozman lo yihesham lo ra'ev, ra'av lo milchama v'lo kina v'tacharus. There will be, in the times of Mashiach, neither hunger, nor war, nor jealousy, nor competition. She'tovati and mushpas harvi, because there will be a lot of good. Chol madan mitun ka'afar, and all delicacies will be available like dust. V'lo yiheh kol esek ha'olam ela ladas es Hashem belvad. The entire occupation of the entire world will be to know Hashem alone. Lefikach, therefore, yihu chachamim gedolim. Therefore, everyone will be great chachamim. V'yodim dvarim hasasumim ha'amukim. They will know great concealed and hidden things. V'yasigu das boram k'fi koach adam, and they will grasp knowledge of their Creator according to the capacity of man. Shnemar, as it says, ki malah ha'artz dea esad Hashem kamayim li'am machasim. The entire world will be filled with knowledge of Hashem, like the waters that cover the seabed. That not only goes back and comments on all of Hilchos Malachim, because this is the culmination of Malchus, and all of Sefer Shoftim, because this is a culmination of the political order, but the entire Mishneh Torah, right? That the entire Mishneh Torah is, he started off with Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Yisod Yisod Amnu Chachams Leida Sheish Matri Rishon, and he concludes with Yidiyas Hashem. Really, he started with B'Shem Hashem Kel Olam, and he concludes with Yidiyas Hashem, and it is a nice dovetail, with the first section, which is the first book, Sefer Hamada and Sefer and Hilchos Yisodei Torah. So I think it's just, I think it's easy because we view Shalom as a particular thing, because we end off the Shemona Esrei with it as like one thing that we're asking for. I think we think of it as a particular good, or maybe like the best good, but I think it's essential when you're davening for Shalom to realize that all Shalom comes from Yediyas Hashem, and that the way that Shalom will come about in the world is through Yediyas Hashem, and the way that all harms will come about in the world is through Yediyas Hashem, and I think like that is Judaism's unique take on Shalom in the world, that it comes about through knowledge of the truth, and knowledge of God, and I think that's like, clearly this is a major theme of Hanukkah, but like it's, as you can see from the Rambams, this is a theme of all the mitzvahs and Kol Torah Kula, so something to keep in mind constantly.
Two things.
Yeah.
One, that makes sense why he calls it Chaviva. No.
Okay, right, because it embodies this. That's a great point, right? It embodies. Actually, sorry, no, it doesn't. Why? Why doesn't that work?
Oh, because that was specifically about the nace, maybe?
Yeah, well, not only that was specifically about the nace, but he says that Shabbos beats out Ner Hanukkah, because Shabbos Ner Bayis is about Shalom, and the Ner Hanukkah is about pure.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look, the fact that he concludes Hilchos Hanukkah with it means that it is a theme of Hanukkah, but just I don't know if it explains the Chaviva,
Also, just how does that work exactly? Like, you just elaborate on like how knowledge leads to shalom and how lack of knowledge stops shalom.
Right. So the brief elaboration here is, let's talk about, again, interpersonal ra'os and self-inflicted ra. So there's two types of ignorance. Okay, there's where you are lacking knowledge. So that's clear how that can cause harm, right? Like if you don't know that smoking is bad, then that is going to then smoking is going to kill you. Or if you don't know what the proper form of government is, and you make laws that are not in line with what's actually good, so then that's going to cause harm in society. But then the other kind of lack of knowledge is when your mind knows something, but it's not real to your emotions. So that's also a lack of knowledge. That's also a form of ignorance, because you have it's like we talked about in itikad, right? That you can say the right ideas, but if it's not impacting your full self, then there's something lacking in the knowledge. In fact, what Rabbi Yaakov Trackman once said, just in passing, one of these like genius remarks that he made, is he said, "What is knowledge? What do we mean when we say Chachmas Hashem? Chachmas Hashem is that which moves the universe," or something like that. Okay, and he said that, and what he meant by that was, let's say, like when we talk about the Chachmas Hashem in the Bria, what we mean is that everything operates based on God's Chachma, and it's actually like God's Chachma in the universe is actually like causing the motion of the universe, whatever that means. So in us, if we have knowledge, but it's not affecting us, it's not changing our decisions or our emotions, so then it's lacking as Chachmas Hashem. Think about that, So in other words, if you lack knowledge, then you will harm people. If you lack intellectual knowledge, but also if the knowledge is not real to you, you will harm people. So all human jealousy and fighting and competition and all this other stuff is either people not knowing what's truly good for man, valuing stuff that is actually not good, or implementing the means that are not good, to achieve ends that are good. Let's say, for example, like in America, the school system is predicated on the idea that knowledge is good, but there's clearly a lot of harm being done about the way education is being, conducted. Or it's that people's knowledge is not real to them, that we all give lip service, for example, to the fact that all human beings are created b'tselem Elokim, but it's not real to us because what our emotions say is, I am superior and I deserve more than you do, or like I'm better than you, or or people who I don't like are somehow not human. So if you had full knowledge, meaning knowledge, Yedias Hashem is going to be knowledge of Torah, knowledge of reality, because those are the only two ways we can know Hashem, and also negative knowledge of Hashem. And not having like false views of God. So then the cumulative impact of this would be that it would remove all of these types of harm in this way. That's the overview. I mean, obviously the details take more to flesh out, but Mishneh is a good way to illustrate this, because in Mishneh, every pasuk is either giving you knowledge about how to make an effective decision, or it's giving you knowledge that aids you in seeing through the cloudy, distorted view that your emotions portray, and it's helping you to act vis-a-vis your fellow man in a way that's mutually beneficial, and also to act vis-a-vis yourself in that way.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Again, obviously much bigger. So one more thing also, and then I have to go, is when we talk about in Sim Shalom, we talk about like mim or panecha, like we talk about that it comes from God's like or panav. So or panav is a mushal. I mean, it could be mushal for several things, but I know that there are mafarshim who take it as mushal for knowledge, and that's just something to think about also, where we're explicitly referencing this idea in Sim Shalom, that the shalom is coming from knowledge of God. So just wanted to.
Ooh, and that connects to the Hanukkah Neros, because they're lights.
Lights. There you go. And to our Mishneh pasuk. Ki ner mitzvah Torah, or oh my goodness, everything connects. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I think that was a good trip through Hilchos Chanukah, if I may say so myself. And so the plan will be next week, resume with Hilchos Yesodei Torah, starting with the Sefer Mitzvos and Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, then going into the Mishneh Torah. All righty. All right, enjoy. Have a happy rest of Hanukkah.
Thank you.